Istanbul, Constantinople, Byzantium, a timeless city where old and new coexist, where East meets West, and the city literally spans continents. Blah blah blah. Point is, Istanbul is one of my favorite cities in the world, and should be high on any traveler's list. In this video, I hope to show you why. Part of what I love so much about the city, and why I recommend it highly to everyone, is that it has basically everything people travel for. History, culture, shopping, food, nightlife, architecture, views. Istanbul has them all. Let's start with arriving in the city. Istanbul has 2 airports. A few international flights land at Sabiha Gökçen, though it's mostly low-cost carriers. The vast majority of flights arrive at the new Istanbul airport. Unlike the old Ataturk airport, it's located very far away from the city and the metro doesn't reach it yet. Fortunately, buses run every 30 minutes to various places downtown. Before you leave the airport, go ahead and buy an Istanbul cart. Public transportation is great in Istanbul and completely safe, and I frankly never felt the need to take a taxi. I loaded up 100 lira on my card and I was good for 5 days. The bus to and from the airport is 18 lira each way. The next question is where to stay in Istanbul. Unequivocally, if it's your first time, I recommend Sultanahmet, which is the area right in the middle of all the historic sites. I could see staying in Karaköy or Taksim if you're more into nightlife, but I found wandering around the historic heart of the city at night to be one of the most memorable experiences while I was there. There aren't any major international hotel chains in the old part of town, but you're able to get a comfortable room with breakfast for $50 to $100 a night depending on the season. So why Sultanahmet? The entire peninsula is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and all of the major attractions are within walking distance. Of course, we need to start with Hagia Sophia. Completed in 537 and in only 5 years, it was the largest church in the world. After the Ottoman conquest in 1453, most of the Christian interior was destroyed as it was converted into a mosque. While crowded, there's a reason this place is Turkey's most visited tourist attraction. As of now, it's a secular museum, though someone wants to change that. Next is the Blue Mosque. Very much a functioning mosque to this day, it was completed in 1616. Access is limited to tourists, but there's no entry fee. There is the Basilica Cistern, an underground water storage facility that looks like a temple. Just next door is the place where half of the Hippodrome stood. To celebrate their empire, the Romans/Byzantines erected columns from different parts of the empire. For example, one was taken from Egypt, made by Thutmose III, and another from Greece, commemorating the Battle of Plataea. Don't feel too bad about the historical appropriation though, karma always catches up. The real jewel of the Hippodrome, the horses, now reside in St. Mark's Square in Venice, having been looted during the Fourth Crusade. Finally, there's the Topkapi Palace, the home of the sultans from 1478 to 1853. The main museum contains many ceremonial halls, kitchens, and works of art. There's also the harem for an additional fee, with the sultan's quarters and those for his wives and servants. Of course, there's much more to see in Sultanahmet: additional museums, churches, and even secret hidden entrances to underground ruins if you know where to look. The larger district of Fatih has many more things to see. One of the largest and oldest covered markets in the world, you can easily spend a half day or full day getting lost in the Grand Bazaar. They sell all sorts of things here, from carpets and jewelry to ceramics and clothes. I'll be honest, I've bought a few carpets here over the years. If spices are more your thing, there's the Egyptian Bazaar, a colorful market with spices, teas, and Turkish delights. I personally would suggest you look, but don't buy here. You know where the Turks buy tea and spices? The grocery store! Or perhaps some smaller shops in less touristy areas. You'll save quite a bit of money, and God knows how long all those spices have been sitting there and how stale they are.
Smart.
The areas outside both markets are surrounded by narrow, crowded streets filled with shops and eateries. Lest you think we are done with mosques, we aren't. Atop a hill is the Suleymaniye Mosque. Built by Suleiman the Magnificent in 1557, it is not only a beautiful mosque, but boasts great views of the Bosphorus. The final things to see in this part of Istanbul are out by the city walls. Take the tram out to the new 1453 Conquest Museum to see, well, one version of how the Ottomans took the city. The conquest was one of the craziest military operations in history, with one of the first successful uses of huge siege artillery, construction of castles, and literally dragging the Ottoman navy overland to get behind the Byzantine defenses. After the museum, walk along the famous walls for a few kilometers to the Chora church, now a museum. Like many Byzantine churches, it was converted to a mosque after the conquest. But rather than actively destroying the interior, the Ottomans merely plastered over it. This act inadvertently preserved the mosaics and frescoes, and the museum now offers some of the oldest and best preserved Byzantine frescoes in the world. But enjoy it while you can. In 2019, a court ruled that the museum had to be reconverted back into a mosque, and we all know the rules about graven images. Will this UNESCO World Heritage Site put the plaster back up? It's almost as if we are returning back to the Middle Ages. So that's all just the area within the old Byzantine walls. Let's cross the Golden Horn on the Galata Bridge, passing all the folks fishing at all hours of the day, and arrive in Karaköy. From here it's a steep hike or easy funicular ride up to Galata. Historically an independent and neutral Genoese outpost, it was incorporated into Istanbul after the Ottoman conquest, though the neighborhood maintains a unique style. At the top is Galata Tower, built in 1348, which offers dramatic views of Istanbul and the Bosphorus. From the Galata Tower, you are almost at Taksim. Many cities have a great street, and in Istanbul, it's Istiklal. At seemingly all hours of the day, it is packed with shoppers taking in the city. Just watch out for the famous Istanbul tram, as you'll need to scurry out of the way as it goes right down the middle of the street. The tram ends at Taksim Square, a transport hub and focal point of the city. If you ever plan on having a revolution, coup, counter-revolution, or counter-coup, make sure there's a nice big square for people to gather. In Istanbul, that square is Taksim. Taking the second funicular from Taksim to Kabataş, it's a short walk to the Dolmabache Palace. In the 19th century, the sultans moved here from Topkapi, and it's a totally different style, much more like the great palaces of Europe. Photography is strictly prohibited inside, and I have no idea who may have taken this photo. There's numerous treasures, and the very bed where Ataturk died. The last site of Istanbul I'll cover is further up the Bosphorus, the Ortakoy Mosque. This small mosque is perched right in front of the 15th July Martyrs Bridge and is a famous place for photos. There's also a craft market on Sundays. So those are all the sights to see in Istanbul. But I haven't mentioned one of my favorite parts, the Asian side. While there aren't as many specific things to see, I really recommend a trip there. It's much more authentic and less touristy. The shops and restaurants are more affordable and frankly often higher quality. But how do you get to the Asian side? That brings me to public transportation. Public transportation in Istanbul is very good, and there are many different kinds. I found the tram to be the most useful, running from Kabataş all the way through Sultanahmet out to the city walls. Next are the buses, which crisscross the city. The two funicular lines save a lot of stairs and are fun to ride. There's the metro, though I didn't use it on this trip. There's regional trains, including the new Marmaray line, connecting Europe and Asia in the deepest train tunnel in the world. Finally, there are the ferries, which sail up and down the Bosphorus and cross over to Asia. No Istanbul trip is complete without taking these boats. Why pay for an overpriced Bosphorus cruise when you can cruise over to Asia for only 5 Turkish lira? If you must do a Bosphorus cruise, do the one offered by the ferry company for only 25 lira. Please don't pay more than that. Let's conclude with one of my favorite things about Istanbul, the food. Turkish cuisine is one of my favorite foods in the world, and you are spoiled for choice. Though like many touristy cities like Paris and Rome, you need to do your homework. If you see an English or multilingual menu or someone touting the food, run. Frankly, I suggest you simply don't eat it all in Sultanahmet, though there are a few hidden gems on the back streets. I did most of my eating in Taksim and Kadakoy on the Asian side. Let me recommend two places as an example. The first is Iskandar Kurulus 1867, which, as the name suggests, has been serving Iskandar kebab for a few years. There is no menu. You only get Iskandar kebab. The question is, how big a portion do you want and what you'd like to drink? If you've never had the combination of gyro meat, bread, yogurt, tomato sauce, eggplant, all smothered in butter, you have not yet tasted the food of the gods. The second is Hagia Sophia, a place so popular it's spread across the street. My favorite thing there is the lahmacun. Some people call it Turkish pizza, but that really isn't it. A thin dough is topped with minced meat and spices and baked, and to eat it you add parsley, squeeze some lemon, and roll it. There's nothing else in the world quite like it. So that's my quick guide to Istanbul. On my third trip there, I still spent full 4 days, and that was just enough time. You could easily spend much longer. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click that button, and please subscribe for many more flight reviews and travel stories like this. I'll see you on the next one.